Part of that logic for you has been about technology and about innovation. So talk about some of the ideas that you had that could have improved lives at low cost or in ways that the aid agencies could have actually used to make people's lives better.
There are two elements. One is, again, use the know-how we have. How you distribute water, how you manage water, how you set up infrastructure. So that's one part. In that, of course, there is, we know today, we're having smart cities today. Why smart city concepts cannot be applied to refugee settings. We have the Internet of Things, which could easily be adapted to also poorer environments. Internet of Things doesn't belong only to the rich, it can also belong to the poor. So, for instance, one big issue we had in the camp was, parents had to do something and couldn't leave the kids alone, because when they left the kids alone, there were dangers for the kids, such as tent fires in the beginning or so. I mean, you could have easily in warning systems in a neighborhood, you could have communication connectivity between different homes. Technology, when it comes to also access to the aid, was, for instance, a major changer in the Zaatari camp, because what is very inhuman is when people have to queue up to get something they don't want.
Like what?
Like food. I mean, we all have different tastes. We all dress differently. We all have different requirements in our daily lives. And here is somebody like me who decides what they eat, how they dress, how they live.
And you have to line up.
And you have to line up. Every 2 weeks you collect some food which you really hate, when you have to eat the same stuff for months and months and years. We decided you have to go to the toilet together. We decided you have to clean the toilets together. We decided you have to cook together. So that's all sort of decisions which are made on your behalf. We can change that. So when the World Food Program changed from food aid, where people had to queue up, to supermarkets where people could go and shop and make decisions, limited decisions of how much they would get for their $1 a day. This is what it costs to feed somebody there. That was changing from an aid charity recipient with, I would say, lack of dignity to a happy shopper.
That's what it comes down to, is what it sounds like you're saying. It comes down to how do you preserve human dignity and also agency, that sense of I can make choices.
And people there made these choices themselves, because they wouldn't wait for us to set up the supermarkets, which took about 2.5 years to set up. But they were setting up their own shops. They invested 3,000 shops in that camp today, with nobody really knows how much monthly turnover. We think it's about $15 million, which changes hands in this camp every month.
Wow.
So, and they brought in all the things, all the commodities we wouldn't distribute. So where they were selling the aid goods for cheap money, so there was also some form of a mafia coming up. And on the other hand, bought things which made their homes different. Different curtains, different colors. For Syrians, it's very important to set up a fountain at home where you sit and you have a cup of tea and you have a bird cage and you have plants. That was
Can you describe that a little bit more? Describe the dwelling in a refugee camp where there would be a fountain and a bird cage.
So, see, I mean, we are putting, that's the principle. We look at 100,000 people. So we divide 100,000 people by 5. That's the number of tents or living containers, whatever you call it, you have to issue. We will put them in rows.
Okay.
What they did, they didn't stay in rows for 5 minutes. They changed them. They put them together. When they got these basically containers, they cut them into pieces, built something else out of this. They built shops, they built different homes, inner yards. They made sure it became very personal. The right to individualism, I called it as well. People really wanted to be different. They wanted to be different from the neighbor. They wanted to say, come and see my home. And there in that, for the Syrian, we even found people building a fountain out of little stones and cement and so on in the very early days when they just had a tent. So they put tents around, had the fountain just to sit there and have their cup of tea. Later they built their home with prefab parts and elements and so on. But the first part was somewhere where I say, this is where I sit, that's me. It's me and myself, and I'm different from my neighbor.
That seems like a natural human instinct. Also, I think the instinct maybe to work. And so what were most of these people, what are they doing for work?
Well,
What are their opportunities?
unfortunately, again, Jordan, like most refugee hosting countries in the world, do not allow refugees to work because there's something special here. So certainly don't become too comfortable. Although again, that's wrong. I mean, strong people will make strong decisions and will make strong decisions to return when they can, and will also invest back in their home country. So that is also one of the paradigms we have to change. Invest in people, make them as strong as you can so they will contribute to your economy, and also, of course, be stronger when their country or their region or whatever becomes again livable. That's one part. But yes, they cannot work, and so people had a problem of access to organized work. So what happened was, like everywhere else, as they were fabricating their new homes, didn't listen to us, messed up the entire planning of the place, and designed it in the way of how they did. They needed plumbers. They needed to steal the electricity, so they needed 250 electricians to do that. So what that meant as well was basically setting up electricity companies, selling the connections. Right. This is what they did.
So there would be sort of these black markets everywhere.
There were black markets because that's not part of the aid system.
Yeah.
So they were kind of busy, and the whole day drove us crazy because they stole everything what was communal facilities. They dismantled 85 buildings. Up to the last, some of them were done out of blocks, cement blocks, concrete blocks, up to the foundation. Everything was taken because, again, who wants a communal toilet?